We are ready to go when you are! Exclamation point.
Welcome everybody. Welcome Bedros.
Hello. Thank you, Lori. Good to be here.
Awesome. So we're gonna dive right in because I know that you have some good stuff that you want to share with everybody. So why don't we just start, for those who don't know who Bedros is, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here?
Sure. So I always like to start that off by saying I'm the immigrant edge and I'm the American dream. And what I mean by that is when I was 6 years old, my father decided that we're going to escape communist Russia, and we came to the United States. So we were broke, didn't speak English, didn't know our way around this country. All he knew that he didn't want to be a communist anymore. He didn't want his kids to grow up in oppression. And so he brought us to a country that he had heard was all about freedom and opportunity. Sure enough, of course, it was, and he instilled that in us. And so after learning the language and going through a lot of, we were dumpster diving, we got kicked out of apartments, lived in cars, you name it, the adversity has happened to me. But all of those adversities have become my advantage because they've instilled this immigrant edge mentality where being a coaching client in the past, you know what I mean when I say you have to be a weed and a cockroach. And now we have a funny little running joke that you have to be a cockweed. Like the weed, a weed can grow in asphalt, the weed can grow a cockweed, right? Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Now you got me laughing. The weed can grow in asphalt and concrete through wood. I once saw a weed growing where two slabs of concrete met, like literally in midair, and I just went to pull it out. It was on my pool deck and it just fell off in my hand. Like weed was growing in midair. Home Depot has yet to create a solvent that you can spray on weed that would permanently kill it. And so we as entrepreneurs, we as people who are gifted with a talent, a service, a whatever, have to think and operate like a weed so that we can be everywhere all the time and die at nothing. Same with a cockroach. They say a cockroach, you can cut its head off and it'll run around for like 9 days. And then of course, cockroach is like the only thing that could survive the nuclear holocaust. And so with that in mind, if we just start operating at that level of intensity, obsession, and passion, which anybody can, by the way, it's not some kind of inherent gift that someone has, then you are going to hit success faster, you're going to have a greater impact, and of course you're going to make more income, which is typically what most entrepreneurs want. So in that way, I've taken all my adversities, growing up, going to different schools, getting kicked out of schools and all this stuff, and used it as an advantage, and I quickly became the American dream. Today I own Fit Body Boot Camp, which is America's fastest growing fitness franchise, and in fact we're in three continents, 6 countries, over 400 locations worldwide. I coach and consult over 1,000 fitness professionals and wellness professionals, and I have about 20 New York Times bestselling authors, industry experts, gurus that I coach and consult, and you at one point were in that group as well. And so it's this wonderful opportunity to now pay it forward and install this immigrant edge mentality into the people that I serve.
And so let's reverse engineer that, because you said that anyone can become a weed, anyone can do the work, anyone can live the American dream. But it just seems to me like so many people want that and they struggle so hard to actually GSD and do the work. So let's talk about the beginning parts of it and what are some of the key concepts that people need to really embody and self-identify with. I know you talk a lot about the idea of turning pro and really committing to an idea. So do you want to just share a little bit about that?
Sure. And you're 100% right. So many people go, I want to become an entrepreneur. I've got this idea or service that I want to launch and help the world with. But, and you know me, Lori, and I hope your people watching this can value this, but I'm pretty transparent. I'm not going to hold anything back. And so the reality is most people who say they want it really don't. They fear it. They say they want it because they want to give lip service. And quite honestly, most people are just allergic to hard work. If they would just stop being allergic to hard work and actually put their head down and grind. I'm not talking about opening up a Word doc to start writing their sales copy, but then having Facebook notifications coming up and Twitter notifications coming up and Instagram and then watching a YouTube video, checking their emails. See, that's what an amateur does. What a pro does is they shut all that shit down and they open up the one thing that they need to do that's going to move the needle the fastest to success, and they do it and they don't stop and they obsess until it's done. That's the difference between the amateur and the pro. And so when we talk about GSD or getting shit done, it boils down to this one thing, that if you're a person who you feel you have a gift that you need to share with the world, like I feel I have a gift, a purpose that I need to share with the world. And so the way I look at it, and the way I would want to reframe for everyone else to look at it, is if you have a gift, then motherfucker, you have an obligation and a duty to share that gift with the world, to make this world a better place. And if you don't share that gift with the world, if you don't meet your potential, then you not only let yourself down, you let so many humans down across this planet. And I think so many people, if they would just start committing to the idea of getting obsessed, making it part of their obligation and duty in life. I just got back from Europe, and I was watching the Queen's documentary. She turned 90 years old, a couple years ago. And this woman, her whole life purpose is duty and service. 25, she became queen, and it was just duty and service. She's 90 and she's still rocking it every single day. And the reason is she looks at it as her duty, her obligation to serve her country. And if we all look at the gift that we have and that we want to pass along to others as a duty and an obligation, and then put our head down and turn pro and work our nuts off, there's no way that you're not going to hit your fullest potential. There's no way you're not going to make the biggest impact, and there's no way you're not going to make a massive amount of income.
I know I had some stuff, and you at one point told me, you're like, you need to go work that out for yourself or you're going to be stuck. How do people first identify the patterns in their head, their mindset blocks, and then what are some ways that they can work it out for themselves?
Sure. So let's talk about the things that will limit growth. So let's say, all right, Bedros, I buy what you're selling. I will get obsessed. I will make it my duty and my purpose to share my gift with the world. And typically the things that kind of stop people from hitting their fullest potential is their association with money, their fear of criticism and not being liked or supported or talked down to because of, well, you're working too hard, and fear of not belonging to the masses. See, the masses say you need to have balance. You need a really good work-life balance. If you've chosen the path to become an entrepreneur, I'm not saying if you want to have a job. See, if you want to even own a job, that's okay. You can go own one brick and mortar business and you own the business. Yes, you're an entrepreneur. You're making money locally, and that's great. You can open 9 to 5, and it's the next best thing to having a job is to owning a job. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur like yourself, Lori, who has this like burning desire in your gut to serve people and to make a massive impact, and for people to go, I know you, I buy from you, I use your service, and I appreciate you, no matter where you go, then you have to be able to deal with criticism. And that's a really difficult thing to deal with. And so number one, people have to just understand that criticism is going to come no matter what, whether you're making $100,000 a year, 100 million a year, or 100 billion a year. Criticism is going to come. And as far as people's fear and relationship with money, because that always ends up being a limiter as well, I was raised broke and poor. And I talk about the difference. You know, poor is this kind of poverty-stricken way of life. Broke, on the other hand, is, you know, I do pretty well for myself right now. I do very well. I could literally retire and never have to work again. However, very much like Dan Sullivan said, why would I retire from something that I'm passionate from, that drives me? The moment I retire, I would die. I do well right now, but I may make a bad business decision and be broke again, but I'll never be poor. Does that make sense? Poor is a state of mind that people operate from. And so not having money when I was younger, wearing hand-me-down clothes, hearing my dad say that, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, hearing my dad say that we would run out of money before we run out of month, that instilled this bad association with money that in me, and as far as I was concerned, it was the haves and the have-nots. We didn't have money, and it was those other people that had money, those people who knew some magical secret sauce that I didn't know, right? When in reality, money is just attracted to action and success. The harder you work, the more money you make. And so if you just kind of remove that barrier of money by just thinking about money this way. Money is a vehicle to freedom. That's it. That one sentence. Money is a vehicle to freedom. So do you want to have the freedom to spend time with your spouse, with your kids, traveling the world? Do you want the freedom to be able to support the causes and charities that you want? Do you want the freedom to be able to help people go to school or to give people jobs? If the answer is yes to any of that, then money is the vehicle to that freedom. And so once we really identify what money truly is, which is just a vehicle, then we go, you know what? I'm not afraid of it. I realize what I need to do is work my ass off and deliver a service that many people want, and I'll get a ton of money. So we've worked on that. We've worked on the fear of criticism. And so now we need to work on the two factors that really cause people to fail. And those two factors, and I've learned this from Dan Sullivan of all people, are the thoughts that occupy your mind and the people that you hang out with. I mean, listen, if you want to be successful, then the thoughts that occupy your mind have to be success-driven, have to be positive, optimistic. They have to be leadership-driven. You can't say, I want to make $100 million in a lifetime doing business, but then hang out with people who are barely breaking $30,000 a year. You can't do that. You can't say, I want to fly with the eagles, but then hang out with some ducks. So you have to be able to be congruent in your message. So the thoughts that occupy your mind and the people that you hang out with are the two biggest determining factors on failure or success. Now, guess what that means? That means that you might have to cut some people out of your life. And again, are you willing to do it? This goes back to our very first conversation that we just had, which is a pro versus the amateur, right? The pro will say, you know what? I know the people who are toxic in my life. They're crabs, they're energy vampires, they're time vampires. I need to cut these people out of my life because they are not conducive to my goal. On the other hand, these are the people in my life I need to spend more time around because they lift me up, they encourage me, motivate me, and ask me how they can help me further. And so really, are you willing to cut the crabs, time vampires, energy vampires out of your life? If you are, you'll have a better chance of success. If you're not, it's like trying to swim with a chain and an anchor around your neck. You're never going to make it.
Absolutely. And I know this to be true because when I first joined the 100K Mastermind, that's the two things that I noticed that became different in me immediately were that I saw the potential of what my life could be like, which I never even knew of before because all of my friends, I love them, they're employees. They have jobs, they have paid vacation, they have whatever, paid time off. I don't even know what an employee would have anymore. But, you know, and also the normalization of making money and not having it be this like elusive weirdo thing that only some people can get. And I started to see that, you know, time spent working on, you know, your 5%, time spent working on the most important things equaled progress, equaled success, and hanging around the right people. You literally have to rewire your brain. That's not paying lip service, and I know it might like sound cliche, but it's the truth. You have to rewire your brain and almost like reformat your environment.
You know, you're actually very right on this topic, and here's why. Society has conditioned us that, well, we don't want to be a workaholic. Listen, you don't want to be a control freak. In reality, I do want to be a workaholic. You know why? Because studies constantly show that depression goes higher when people have no purpose. And so when you have no purpose, you get depressed and fall off the deep end. Divorce rates go higher when people have no purpose. Relationships fall apart when the people in the relationships have no purpose. In fact, the German Shepherd dog, when you buy a German Shepherd dog, if you're buying it from a good kennel, they're going to tell you, listen, this dog needs a purpose. German Shepherds of all other dogs need to have purpose. Someone, something, they need to go and fetch the ball. They need to know that they're there for a reason. And if they don't, these dogs fall into a deep depression. Well, if a dog can fall into a deep depression, as simple-minded as it is, can't humans who are so complex, who are put on this planet to make a change and an impact during the short period of time that we're here, wouldn't we fall into a depression if we know deep down in our heads and our hearts that we have a gift, but we know that we're just not fulfilling that gift and servicing the world with it? Of course we would. So there's this obligation and duty that we have to go out there and do it. And so you do have to be a workaholic. There's nothing wrong with being a workaholic. It's the lazy people, the sea of mediocrity, that has conditioned the rest of the world to believe that being a workaholic is bad. Because I'll tell you what, the people who are workaholics typically are not broke and are not getting divorced because they're fighting over the number one thing that causes divorce, which is lack of money, right? Now, I'm not saying work so hard that you neglect everything else in your life. What I am saying is, as an entrepreneur, there may not be perfect balance, but let me tell you, when you make money and you're able to buy freedom, you can use some of that freedom time with your family again. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is about being a control freak. As entrepreneurs, and I know you well enough, I know you're a control freak. I'm a control freak. But being a control freak has this bad connotation to it, like, ooh, you're a control freak. Yeah, I do want to control everything. I want to control who texts me, who calls me. I don't want random calls from random people. I don't want random emails from people buying into my time. I don't want people running into me at Starbucks because they know that's where I hang out. I control my environment. I control my time. I control my energy. I control my workspace. I control the temperature. I control every variable I can and stack the odds in my favor to succeed for me and my team in this building. I control the staff that we bring into this building because I've got about 26, 27 people working in this building right now. And if one bad person comes in here, they're going to influence the awesome stud cakes that I have working in this building. So that person's out. I control every variable. And the more control freak I become, the better life I have. And it kind of goes back to Craig's saying of the more structured and disciplined you are, the more freedom you have. Structure truly is freedom.
And I think a lot of people, and this is such a good conversation because it's really never talked about in terms of the bad connotation of workaholic and control and the word, especially for women, ambitious. Like when people are like, oh, you're so ambitious, I'm like, thank you. That's so nice of you to say. But they're looking at it like, wow, like, oh, like really? And I think of it like, wow, thanks. And so I think one of the sort of best kept secrets for those people who are the 1% of the 1% like you, it is that you've remodified these words for yourself and you've reformatted the way that you perceive yourself and the world and the sort of abundance that you could live in. It's an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset.
That's really it. And by the way, those people who go, ooh, you're so ambitious, and meaning to jab you with it, that comes from their deepest, darkest place of insecurity. Because again, going back to that German Shepherd dog, that if they knew that they know they have a greater purpose in life, that's why they're on this planet, but they're not maximizing it, they're not reaching their potential, and you, as ambitious, driven, and happy and optimistic as you are, when you come by them, you really bring this giant microscope and put it right over them and go, hey, take a look at your life. And so then what they do is they vomit back at you and go, oh, you're so ambitious. Aren't you worried about and just start talking shit, when in reality, they should be high-fiving you and saying, hey, girl power, baby, let's do this. How can I get on board with your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay, so let's pivot a little bit. So people who have now bought into this idea that it's okay to be successful, it's okay to work really hard, to be of service, to live your passion, how do they then decide what to work on? How do they identify what their own 5% is so that they can put their head down and do the work?
Very good question. So we've now come to that place where it's like, all right, now it's time to do the work. What do I work on, and what do I know to pass along to others or to outsource? And I'll share the 5% rule in just a moment with your audience. But really, as a person who wants to become an entrepreneur, you're also plagued by this little thing called the idea fairy that always hangs out right above your shoulder and wants to put more ideas into your head and derail you, take you down a rabbit hole, and slow down your progress. Now, if you know that you have a great product or service that solves a problem that the masses want, that you can reach, those are the four criteria, right? A great product or service that solves a problem that people want, that you can reach the masses, then you know you have a great idea. Now, for most people, again, this goes back to the first thing we talked about, you got to lock down, turn pro, put your head down, and work on that one thing until you reach potential. If you remember when you were in the 100K mastermind group that Craig and I run, there would be people in the group who are, all right, I'm going to make an abs training program. It's going to be an abs training program. And they'd go away for their 90 days and they'd come back to the next mastermind and they go, okay, I made the abs training program. I sold 15 copies. So I got this idea of making a total body training program. And it's like, wait a minute. You came on board saying that you have this God-given gift to develop abs. And here 96 days went by and you sold 12 copies of your ab training program and you're ready to shift gears. And it's not typically because their passion turns out was total body or nutrition and not abs. It's because the going got tough and they decided, I'm gonna be amateur, peace, and exit, right? Really their exit is, I'm gonna try another program. So as long as you keep bouncing from product to product, program to program, you're always in creation mode, you're never in selling mode, you never get deflated. Guess what? When you go to sell, that's like going to battle for an entrepreneur. That is going to war, right? And that's you have to go with the intention of, I am not gonna create another product until I have 5,000 units sold of this product. And then you have, when the idea fairy comes and goes, hey, I got this idea for a great product. You go, no, no, no. I'm not going to create another product until I've sold 5,000 units of this product. So I have ideas, but I'm going to put them on the shelf until then. So one, you have to lock down on that one thing. If both you and I are working on a new product or service idea, and let's say we both have jobs right now. So we're both working on Friday nights and weekends. We have the same 16 hours a week to work on this project. If I'm working on the 5% that matter, which means making the product, writing the sales copy, figuring out how to get traffic from Facebook and affiliates. If I'm only working on the things that make money and get my product out there, and you're working on things like, oh, I'm gonna figure out how to make my own website. I'm gonna figure out how to hook up the shopping cart. I'm gonna figure out how to set up the hosting. I'm gonna figure out how to build the membership site. If you're working on the trivial 95% that has to get done, but doesn't have to get done by you, because you can go to Elance or Odesk.com and hire someone from Poland or Indonesia to do it for 12 cents, then the same 16 hours that we're working, baby, I'm getting shit done and you're getting shit done, but the difference is my 5% that I'm getting done, I'm spending my 16 hours on the 5% that matters, that makes me money, makes impact. You're spending your 16 hours a day on the other 95% that's going to burn you out, that's going to get you to a place of, man, you know, Bedros is miles ahead of me and I'm not, so I might as well quit. And so that's the whole 5% rule that people need to focus on. So one, find the product and lock in on it, set a number and get to that number. And number two, work on the 5% of the things that matter and outsource the other 95%.
So let's just talk for a minute about the mindset block about outsourcing, because as you're talking about this, and I'm gonna have to work on my poker face because this is video and I'm like smiling really hard because I agree with you, but I can hear the people's voice in the back of my mind, but I don't have the budget to outsource and I don't know how to outsource and what do I say and how do I spend money when I'm not making money? What do you say about that?
First of all, there's this magical thing called Google. So if anyone says, I don't know how to outsource, man, if you just type in outsource web design, you're going to find so many resources. But if people say, well, I don't have the money, well, I have an idea. You need to start budgeting. Again, this goes back to being pro. If you're going to launch a business and you are going to try and quit your day job or maybe leave a company that you're at and go full-time on this business, you got to start tightening that belt. If that means eating top ramen soup, if that means downgrading your house to an apartment, I know a guy who sold his car to get on a coaching program with me. You have to do whatever it takes to get the money so that you can get the outsourced service. When people come to me and go, yeah, but I don't, as soon as it starts with I don't have or I don't know, the I don't know, Google. Google will solve every problem. And if it's I don't have, find a way to get it, right? My job isn't to teach you how to have it. I'm going to give you the direct path to go from A to B to Z the fastest way possible, but my job is not to be able to sit there and coddle people along. And I think most coaches kind of tend to coddle people along, and before you know it, these people just become weaker instead of stronger. So I kind of like to stack the adversity against them and say, hey, you got Google, and you got a whole bunch of shit you can sell. Sell what you need to sell, Google what you need to Google, so that you can afford the things you need to afford to grow your business. Simple as that.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that you've used, some books that you've read, some tools that you use in your own business. I know, just like me, you have like just a minor problem focusing sometimes. And so what are some of the, what are some of the tools and strategies that you use? You have 2 kids. People might not realize that you have a family. You have 2 children. I have 2 kids. We have a busy, full life. So how do you structure your day, structure your time, and what are some of the tools that you use to keep you on track?
Well, the number one thing, believe it or not, is a book that's right over your shoulder, The Perfect Day Formula. Craig's book, right there, exactly. I've been fortunate enough to have started in a relationship with Craig where he was a coaching client, and we quickly became friends and then business partners and started the 100K Mastermind group that you used to be a part of. Before that book was ever written in 2015, after spending 7 years of lots of time with Craig Ballantyne, his discipline and structure just through osmosis wore off on me. And I found myself waking up earlier in the days. I found myself going to sleep having written down my action items for the next morning. These days, I don't go to sleep unless I have my to-do list for tomorrow morning. When I go to sleep, it has to be 10 p.m. or sooner so that I could be up by 5 or 5:30. Right? And then when I get up, I have a very strict ritual, and my ritual has to get stuck to. I used to try to meditate. It didn't work for me, so I just do something real simple. What are the 3 things I'm grateful for this morning? And it could be just for waking up, the sun's out, and I have a beautiful dog today. All right, and who are the 3 people that I'm grateful for? This person, that person, that person, and who are the 3 people that I'm gonna send a text message to and pump them up, puff them up, and make their day. Just, hey man, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a friend. Send. 333, that takes me about a minute and a half to do my gratitude. After I wake up, shower, there's gratitude, I have my protein shake, and then I'm out on the lawn playing with the dog. Within about 45 minutes of being woken up, I'm already on my favorite couch in the house, undistracted. At this point, it's like 6:15, maybe 6:30, and I've got 3 hours of work that I can do uninterrupted. Again, going back to Craig's magic time that he calls it. I get so much work done uninterrupted when my kids are in school and no one's at the house that by 9 a.m. I go to the gym, I work out for an hour, and then I come to the headquarters by 10:30, and then I can just dominate my day because I know my staff has questions of me. I've got podcasts and stuff like this that I have to do. I don't have to go, let me cut Lori off short because I have to go and write email broadcasts and write sales copy. I did that this morning when everybody else was asleep. So dominating your mornings is the number one thing that a professional does. Being disciplined in your mornings, having structure in your mornings. So book number 1 is Craig's Perfect Day Formula. If you can't hang out with him for 7 years straight like I have, then read the book and apply the book. Book number 2, to get over the mental hang-ups in life, and Lord knows I grew up with mental hang-ups, is Gay Hendricks has a book called The Big Leap. Highly recommend it. Maxwell Maltz has a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. I would encourage those as book number 2 and 3. Book number 4 would be Grant Cardone's 10X Rule. If you can listen to it on audio, I promise you will want to punch your way through any wall and obstacle because he reads his book on the audio and he reads it like a madman, like a fanatical madman. And if just anybody would start off with just those 3 books, then the list can go on from there. You know, Dan Kennedy, Tony Robbins, Napoleon Hill. Actually, Napoleon Hill, if there was a 5th book I can add to this, Lori, it would be Napoleon Hill's not How to Win Friends and Influence People, but Outwitting the Devil, which is an amazing book and very much worth listening to on audio versus reading.
So those are such good book recommendations, and we'll definitely link to them below. I'm going to put you on the spot for just a second. So when we were working together, I know that you woke up a little bit later. I think you woke up maybe like at around like 6:30, and now I hear that you're waking up earlier, which is awesome. I've been waking up since I met you and Craig at 5 a.m. And that's, I think, one of the number one reasons why I am where I am today. So what's shifted for you that you decided to wake up earlier, and how has that affected your health, your mindset, and your success? Even just that hour difference.
Yeah, that's a really good question actually. And here's what I shared with someone else recently. I said, you know how there's a black belt, like when you're in karate, your goal is to get up to black belt, right? And then you become a black belt and they go, hey, you could become a 1st degree, a 2nd degree, a 3rd degree black belt. Holy shit, you can get to 10th degree black belt. Well, as it turns out, when you turn pro, you can be 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, 4th degree, 10th degree pro. And so what really happened, and this is cool that you were around during my evolution as I was spending more time with Craig and he was just beating me upside the head with his knowledge on this stuff, but I decided to finally turn a higher level of pro. Because what I would do is I would get up at 7:30 and I would be rushed because I always wanted to get to the gym by 9 a.m. And so I would get up at 7:30. That means by like 8:15, I'm working. I have 45 minutes to work before I have to get to the gym. So I'd write a shitty broadcast, or whatever copy I was working on was just mediocre and meal pieced together. And that created anxiety. Then I'd get to the headquarters and staff wants to talk to me. I've got to do interviews and podcasts like this. And all I'm thinking is, these people need to go away so that I can go back into my office and work on the piece of copy or email broadcast or book I'm writing that I left alone this morning. And that ultimately started creating anxiety in me. It created anxiety so bad, Lori, that I ended up having not only massive anxiety attacks, which I thought was a heart attack. You remember I sent out an email about it, which was titled "The Morning of My Heart Attack." But the anxieties ultimately led to these things called essential tremors. I would literally ball up and shake. My nervous system would shut down because I was overwhelmed with so much shit to do and not enough time. And of course, so what would I try and do? I'd try and steal time from my family by, all right, you guys go to bed. I'm gonna stay up and work through the middle of the night. I'd work until 2 o'clock in the morning. You show me one person who's creative, who can think clearly at 2 o'clock in the morning. It can't happen. I've done it in the past, and if I had to go do it over again, I would, but that is not your most creative time when you have lots of juices flowing and energy. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna start doing what Craig suggests. And I just went from 7:30 to 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock to 6:30, 6:30 to 6, and eventually just ratcheted back. And now I just automatically wake up between 5 and 5:30. I don't set an alarm or anything. If I'm in bed by 10 and I have my notes for the night from the next day next to me on my iPhone, then I just automatically wake up between 5 and 5:30 and just start GSDing, and I've got a routine. So I guess hey, work your nuts off and stress yourself out until you have anxiety attacks and essential tremors, and then you too will get structured.
Which is likely what most people do, right? They work their nuts off and they have some type of burnout, and then they go, oh, maybe I have to learn some strategies to do this a better way. Do you have one last piece of advice for our friends watching this right now?
Well, I don't know if there's any other piece of advice because you asked all the right questions and I hope I was able to deliver all the right answers. But if there was one parting thing I can give you is that everyone who is watching this is obviously someone who is, how am I going to say this? They're of a higher caliber. They know they don't belong in the sea of mediocrity. They're part of that 5%, 4%, 3, 2, 1 percentile. And sometimes you have to be able to accept that and cut away the people and the noise and the distractions and go against the grain. So the one piece of advice I can give you is that if you are a 1%er and you're watching this and you can feel it in your gut that you resonate with what I've been sharing here today and with what Lori teaches you, because I know the stuff she teaches you is very much in line with what I teach, then you've got to start working against the grain. Trust your gut, work against the grain. It's okay to have haters. It's okay to be criticized. It's okay to have lots of money and freedom and opportunities, because at the end of the day, you're going to make a much bigger impact on the world than all those other negative people who are cynical and tend to criticize.
Amazing. Yeah, in my community, we call ourselves black sheep. So we really praise ourselves for being, the one black sheep in the sea of all the sameness, all the white sheep. And then we all found each other in some other pasture where all the cool black sheep are hanging out, and we don't have to feel judged by all the pretty white sheep.